104. That is the staggering number of matches we are going to see in the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Seriously, think about that for a second. It's a massive leap. This completely changes the fabric, the strategy, and honestly, the sheer physical endurance required to survive the biggest sporting event on the planet. The logistics alone are just mind-bending. We're talking about shifting this tournament from a sprint into an absolute marathon of endurance and survival. Okay, let's dive into this. I'm your host, and today we are unpacking the unprecedented scale, the physical spaces, and the vibrant culture of the 2026 World Cup in this explainer. With Canada, Mexico, and the United States sharing hosting duties for the very first time, this tournament is literally shattering historical records before a single ball is even kicked. We're looking at a logistical undertaking that is poised to change international football forever. Here's how we're going to break this down, zooming from the macro right down to the micro. First, we'll look at the biggest tournament ever, then check out the new rules of the game, explore the historic and high-tech venues, and finally, dig into the culture, food, and fans. So, starting off with Section 1, the biggest tournament ever, and how we're expanding the global game. The math behind this expansion is absolutely staggering. We are jumping from 32 teams back in 2022 all the way up to a massive 48-nation roster. That means the total number of matches is skyrocketing from 64 to 104, pushing the tournament's duration to 39 days. Now, you might be wondering what that actually means for the players. Well, the absolutely crucial point here is that a team hoping to reach the final and lift that trophy will now have to survive an 8-match gauntlet instead of the traditional 7. I know, it doesn't sound like much on paper, but that one extra game, it completely alters training regimes, squad rotation, and recovery timelines for every single team involved. It's a real game changer. So, how do you mathematically organize 48 teams? Well, FIFA ultimately decided on 12 groups of 4. The top 2 teams in each group automatically advance, but so do the 8 best third-place teams, which pushes everyone into a brand new knockout round of 32. Now, the logic behind the specific 14 model is super fascinating. Actually, FIFA initially considered groups of 3, but they pivoted specifically to prevent the very real risk of collusion. Think about it. If a group only had 3 teams, 2 teams playing in that final group match would inherently know exactly what result they both needed to advance. They could comfortably play out a slow, boring draw to ensure they both go through, completely freezing out the third team watching helplessly from their hotel. So, going with the 14 format keeps that final match day totally unpredictable and highly competitive. Moving on to Section 2, new rules of the game and stopping the clock. It's not just the sheer volume of matches changing in 2026. The action on the pitch is getting a strict, fascinating overhaul. The lawmakers of the game, the International Football Association Board, or IFAB, have designed some rigid new rules to directly target and eliminate time-wasting and confrontational behavior. For starters, players being subbed off now have exactly 10 seconds to exit the pitch. If they drag their feet to waste time, no way. Their replacement is forced to wait a full minute to come on, leaving their team a man down. Plus, referees can now initiate a visual 5-second countdown for throw-ins and goal kicks to keep things flowing. Oh, and if a player receives medical attention on the pitch, they must wait on the sideline for a full minute before returning. As for player conduct, this one is wild. If a player intentionally covers their mouth with their hand or shirt to hide insulting language from lip readers while confronting an opponent or official, boom, it's an automatic red card. The game we'll see in 2026 is going to be visibly faster, much stricter, and definitely more transparent. So we've got a substantially bigger tournament, significantly more teams, and a much tighter rulebook, which naturally leads us to ask, where are all these incredible matches actually going to happen? Let's look at Section 3, historic and high-tech venues, from Azteca to SoFi. We are looking at 16 host cities across the North American continent, and the architectural contrast between these stadiums is absolutely incredible. We begin with living, breathing history. Estadio Azteca in Mexico City is set to become the first stadium on the planet to ever host matches in 3 separate World Cups. I mean, this is hallowed ground for football fans. This is the very site where Diego Maradona famously danced around 5 England players in 1986 to score what is known worldwide as the goal of the century. Fittingly, the deep, legendary history of the stadium will be honored when it rightfully hosts the tournament's opening match on June 11th, setting the stage where the ghosts of football past meet the future. But let's contrast that classic open-air cathedral with something entirely different, Los Angeles' SoFi Stadium. While Azteca reaches up to the sky with its towering stands, SoFi was actually built 100 feet below grade. Why? Well, because it sits just 3 miles from LAX airport runways, and architects had to strictly comply with FAA height restrictions. This subterranean requirement completely changes the whole fan experience. Instead of walking up massive ramps to your seat, you actually enter at the very top of the stadium and descend directly into the bowl. It's a high-tech marvel that turns traditional stadium design entirely upside down. Now, what's really interesting about this setup is the massive ETFE roof covering SoFi Stadium. ETFE stands for ethylene tetrafluoroethylene. Say that 3 times fast. It's a single-layer, highly durable, translucent canopy that completely covers a sprawling 3.1 million square foot footprint. The engineering here uses a 65% frit pattern, which is essentially tiny printed dots on the material to strategically shelter fans from the harsh California sun. Yet, it still floods the stadium with natural light and allows cool ocean breezes to flow openly through the venue's sides. It creates this incredible, seamless indoor-outdoor environment that perfectly captures the Southern California vibe, giving fans climate comfort without losing the feeling of actually being outside. Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, Culture, Food, and Fans, a global mosaic. Let's zoom all the way down to the human element. Traveling between these amazing stadiums means diving into a vibrant melting pot of fans and local cultures. To really understand the fan experience, let's put a spotlight on Canada, who will be hosting the Men's World Cup for the very first time. The country is often described as a mosaic of cultures, rather than a melting pot, boasting more than 250 ethnic origins and over 200 languages spoken. In massive host cities like Toronto and Vancouver, over half the population was born outside of the country. That deep diversity and ingrained welcoming spirit will be fully on display, offering an incredibly rich and eclectic experience for the millions of traveling fans. And honestly, what better way to experience a culture than through its food? Let's count down 5 incredible culinary staples that perfectly represent Canada's rich cultural blending and Indigenous heritage. Coming in at number 5, Jamaican patties. Flaky, golden, savory pastries filled with perfectly spiced meats that are a beloved everyday staple. Number 4, bannock, a hearty, comforting, traditional Indigenous flatbread that connects you directly to the country's deep First Nations roots. Number 3 is the famous wood-fired Montreal-style bagel, known worldwide for its dense, slightly sweet, and perfectly chewy texture, usually coated generously in sesame seeds. At number 2, we have butter chicken roti, which brilliantly showcases the massive South Asian influence in places like Toronto by wrapping incredibly rich, creamy, and warmly spiced curries in soft, warm flatbread. And finally, taking the number 1 spot, of course, poutine, a glorious, indulgent mountain of crispy fries, squeaky, fresh cheese curds, and thick, rich gravy. It is literally the ultimate post-match comfort food. So we come to this. With an expanded roster of 48 teams, an exhausting gauntlet of 104 matches, game-changing new rules, awe-inspiring historic and high-tech venues, and a beautiful mosaic of global cultures coming together, who will actually survive to make history in the most massive World Cup ever? That is the ultimate question that will have the entire world holding its breath in the summer of 2026. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes on the pitch.